We start, Sam, with the Blues, and you believe that tensions are rising by the day at Carlton over the another loss on the weekend as they continue to mount.
I do, Craig. I think there is this misnomer in the football media and in some sections at Carlton that because of what Luke Sayers, the president, said last week, essentially guaranteeing Michael Voss that he would be coach next year. He is contracted, of course, for 2023. There's this feeling that he will coach no matter what. I can tell you tonight that that is a fallacy. Michael Voss is coaching for his career at Carlton in the same way in the next 11 weeks that Carlton are playing to save their season. There is a lot going on behind the scenes. I'm not just talking about board level and whether they believe that Michael Voss is the right man to ultimately coach Carlton to its next premiership. There are players that are starting to wonder if in fact they have the right system. There are opposition clubs that I have spoken to over the weekend that believe Carlton do not have a discernible game plan. There are players at Carlton who don't want to be playing with one another. There are factions developing within the playing group as well. There is a lot going on at the Carlton Football Club. That is not to say that Michael Voss will not survive this and they won't do what Richmond did with Damien Hardwick and what Collingwood did with Nathan Buckley.
But do you think his job's in real threat?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so if they are well beaten against Essendon on Sunday night by the man who they probably should have got to coach in many people's eyes, and that is Brad Scott, who was available to them before he went to Essendon, it will be symbolic of not just how Essendon have gone forward, but in fact how Carlton have gone backwards. And there are still senior people who are restless at the lack of development at Carlton.
Who?
I'm not telling you who.
People who make the decision
Absolutely.
on whether he stays or goes?
Yeah. Ultimately...
Because Luke Sayers says entirely different to that.
That doesn't... He had to say that. You know how these things work.
You think
Hutchie, you've been in senior positions at lots of companies before. You know how this works. You have to say he is our man until he isn't. Michael Voss may well survive all of this.
What does he need to do to survive?
They need to win games, Cornsey,
What,
and
they need to
start scoring. I personally think, as we sit here right now, saying that they would have to make finals and for him to survive is unrealistic and is unfair. They certainly have to show that they are willing to score and play in a different way to what they are at the moment.
What about the part you said there about players not wanting to play with each other? Is this off the back of you're saying Michael's coaching, or is this just that...
No, I think that's separate, Lloydie. There are lots of players that truly believe that Michael Voss can get them out of this and that Michael Voss is the man. But there is at least one situation that I know of inside the Carlton dressing room between a couple of players which has caused issues in the team.
What is that?
I couldn't go into it because by going into it, I would reveal sources and I'd burn some people.
Well, let's deal with it a little bit further. The situation, the leaders, Doherty and Michael Voss among them, were asked about the state of play on the weekend.
What we need to do to become a really good side is to have that resilience and that group resilience through adversity. And I think in long term, as much as people will probably criticise me, but I think it's going to be great for us in the long term. I think there's going to be guys that are going to really nail down on what their roles are and their footy and their game and their work habits. And I think there'll be positives out of that. It's just at the moment we're stuck in the mud and we've got to try and work our way out of it.
Well, it's fast closing. Here's the brutal facts. We're not good enough at the moment. So that's the brutal facts.
And then the off-season won't be far away. They keep losing. The massive game this weekend, to your point. How do they haven't got a lot of
room to move.
Tools at their disposal. They're going to have to be a bit bold in recruiting their way out of the mud that they're in, if you believe that language.
That's my biggest concern for them, Hutchie and Sam and Lordo, is the list management, which we've done a number of times, but how locked in they are to the deals that they've got and, you know, what drastic moves that they can make. And we've seen over the journey clubs have done things before, but that's your point there about Tom De Koning and his future. He remains out of contract and
highly unlikely he stays at Carlton now.
Because he's unhappy with his non-selection and all the issues that you speak to.
I think it's never one or two things. It's a combination, right? But the way that Carlton are going, the offers that he's going to have from the likes of Sydney and Geelong, I think, who have come hard and late, I can't see him being at Carlton. But to Kane's point about whether it's the list or the coach, Lloydie, there are sections of people that I talk to that will point out that in rounds 22 and 23 last year, not that long ago, they took it up to and probably should have beaten Melbourne and Collingwood, playing a very different way. And yet the game plan seems to have shifted this year.
Lordo, I think he's focused really heavily on one aspect of the game, and defensively they've been really strong. but he's neglected other areas. They've lost that midfield power that Sam speaks to, and they've lost any connection. They can't score, which is so flattening for anyone that's played the game. As much as everyone talks defence and all of that, you want to score.
You think
want
they
to
look
get
a
the
bit
crowd.
slow?
Yes, I think they're slow. I think they're not giving effort. I don't think they're physical enough. Might show a couple of clips to highlight that. But they've got Andrew Russell, their fitness man, and this is the result they're getting. So keep your eyes on Fritsch there. Keep your eyes on Smith. This is a ball in dispute. Fritsch wins it, and watch him go. Does anyone touch him? Does one Carlton player go with him? Free kick. Stop play, slow play, time to regroup, time to set up defensively, time to run, time to work. There's Smith, who was at the contest. Watch Fritsch at the top of the goal square. He takes an uncontested mark essentially in the goal square. That's the work rate Melbourne are bringing. Why is Carlton not buying in defensively to actually put a body on him? He's Gawn and Young in the ruck, Lordo, and we have to speed this up. But they're together at the stoppage. Last quarter, Melbourne the best last quarter team in the competition. Are Carlton working hard here? Does anyone touch Max Gawn? Watch him float through the middle of your screen. He's involved in another contest here, side by side. He goes. This guy's 207 centimetres. Young doesn't go with him. Gawn marks the ball essentially uncontested inside 50, goes back and kicks a match-winning goal. They're not buying into what they're trying to be taught.
I thought Fremantle looked horrible. We all thought they looked horrible, didn't we? About 5 or 6 weeks ago, and there's no doubt that they went to the Gabba and got torched by trying to play an aggressive way, but they tried. They knew they couldn't keep playing the way they're playing. I think Carlton are in that area where they're trying Carlton, but they look awful. They look slow, they look one-paced, they can't score. Michael Voss is even saying they're tight as a team. He's got to look at himself and say, why are my players playing tight and playing a footy that I'm not actually asking them to play? Like I talk about Patrick Cripps, he looks as tight as anybody. Sam Walsh is getting...
What's happened to Cripps?
Well, here's his numbers, they're well down, but he has those moments, Cripps, where he can look... He's a Brownlow medalist one minute and he look poor the next. I've never seen Sam Walsh get caught so many times. You know, the way Harry Mackay's kicking, Jacob Wiedering's season has been baffling. Why are so many in the same boat? And that's got to come back onto Michael to this week. Even if we concede 100 points, let's see if we can kick 100.
So release the shackles.
I think he has to.
What does he stand for as a coach, Lotto? Could you look at Michael and say, this is how he coaches and this is what he expects of his team?
Early I could. That was just that brutal midfield that reminded me of him. But I haven't seen much since then. I just want to touch on the draft hand. We touched on that earlier about how we're getting to that point, Hutch, where they're currently in the bottom. They're currently fifth bottom, so there's a pick five. I'd let the Conning go. I don't think he's doing enough at the moment, and just see how many good young midfielders with dynamic speed and pace they can get into the club. But I understand it's more than players, it's a mindset as well.
Well, their challenge is to see if they can improve that in a trade rather than accept that as the compensation.
I disagree a bit with De Koning. I think he's one player that gives genuine effort, and I just wouldn't be giving up 203 centimetre ruckman forwards.
What's he worth? You're good at this, because I think if he wants 800,000, I'm letting him go because they've overpaid players for too long.
And that's the issue for them. Can they afford them? Can they match the offers? And what draft pick will you get? But he is one that could really come back to
Well, you
hurt
think
them.
Horn France with 8 first-round picks, so we won't judge on that.